You know, I feel like doing a new response video, but I need a good candidate to talk about. Castle, do you have any suggestions for a response video candidate?
I have a good subject for today's video. Would you like me to surprise you?
You could just give it to me now.
Okay, here you go.
How hard is it to not buy a video game by Steve Shives, goddammit?
Would you like me to give you a new suggestion?
No, I'm going to have to do this.
Understood.
Hey everyone, Road Breach here, and today we're going to talk about Steve Shives. For those who don't know, Steve Shives is a YouTuber who talks about social justice issues in pop culture. Steve here is infamous for blocking people who have dissenting opinions, and he was a regular candidate for anti-SJW response videos back in 2016 and 2015. And he's decided to talk about the new Harry Potter game coming out this year. I'm sure we're all aware of the attempted boycotting because of some of J.K. Rowling's tweets. Hell, it's gotten to the point where some activist, quote-unquote, has made a website that tells you if a certain streamer on Twitch has played the game. I wish I was joking. It is just that sad. It would be one thing if you didn't want to play the game because you don't like the creator of the franchise, but the fact that people are virtue signaling to others not to play it and telling them that they're awful people for pre-ordering a video game is where I take issue. What's funny about all this is that when creating a character in the game, none of the options are labeled male or female, and you're given an option of which dorm room to sleep in, regardless of body type. So I'd argue that this game is actually very trans-inclusive. But I guess why do research when you can join a bandwagon, am I right? But enough preamble. Let's just get into this.
I'm not much of a gamer, so maybe I'm missing something here about this whole Hogwarts Legacy situation.
Wow, an SJW trying to speak on a subject matter they have no business speaking on?
Well, butter my butt and call me a biscuit.
We're not even 10 seconds in and we already have an irony alert. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I may have cut you off too early, Steve. I'm gonna let you finish.
As I understand it, J.K. Rowling, creator of Harry Potter, and as such one of the primary beneficiaries of any profits earned by Harry Potter-related products, has spent the last several years using her sizable platform and influence to campaign against transgender people, to oppose them having equal rights and access to healthcare, to vilify them as threats to the safety of children and cis women, and generally to insult and attack and denigrate them. And as a result of all that, trans folks and their allies have asked people not to buy the new Hogwarts Legacy game because doing so would be to put money in the pocket of J.K. Rowling, avowed enemy of the trans community. So, assuming I've got that much right, I guess my question to those of you who seem torn between wanting to support the trans community and wanting to play this game is, what's the problem?
Well, Steve, maybe it could be because this game looks very promising, and the game is very trans-inclusive for the reason I mentioned earlier. The problem is authoritarian dickheads like you trying to police what media people spend their money on.
I'm not talking about people who have been open about the fact that they either don't give a shit about trans people or are actively hostile to them and strongly in favor of Rowling and her many transphobic statements. I know what the problem is with them. They're bigoted assholes. No confusion there. I'm talking about people who claim to be allies to trans people, who recognize the harm in Rowling's conduct. I've seen this basic exchange take place online a few times since this became a thing. A trans person will say, hey, J.K. Rowling is an active threat to my rights and my well-being, so please don't buy that new Harry Potter game. And in response, a cis person will say, I love the trans community, but come on, what am I supposed to do? Not buy a video game? Yes, that's what you're supposed to do, not buy a video game.
How the hell are words an active threat to anything? I guess you could argue that tweets could be an active threat to the environment, but I'm definitely putting more words in your mouth than you put in others' mouths with that one. And where do you get off by dictating what people spend their money on? Is this like an SJW's fetish or something? You know what? I actually don't need an answer for that, because the answer is yes.
And again, assuming you really do love the trans community and want to be an ally and want to avoid causing any unnecessary harm to trans people or further empower those who seek to continue persecuting and marginalizing them, I'm just curious, what's so fucking hard about that?
It's pretty hard to take a person seriously when they dictate what I should and shouldn't buy for political reasons when they don't engage with said medium to begin with. This is one of many reasons why nobody took Anita Sarkeesian seriously when she made her god-awful videos on video games, despite the fact that she said she didn't want to play any of them because she didn't want to blow people's heads off or whatever. And does it really empower the creator when an adaptation of media they made goes against the creator's values? I think this is a very good encapsulation of the fact you clearly did no research into this subject.
How hard is it to not do something you don't have to do to avoid contributing to harm being caused to people you care about? How hard is it to not buy a thing you do not need to buy in the first place? Because when I put it that way, it sure doesn't seem like it should be hard at all or require more than a second's thought. You know? Am I missing something? What's the hang-up here?
The hang-up is the fact that buying a game doesn't contribute to anti-trans bigotry. Just because J.K. Rowling may get some money out of it doesn't make Hogwarts Legacy problematic. It would be like being shamed for buying a Tesla because the metals in the battery are mined by children, or shaming people for buying an iPhone because they're manufactured by slave labor. You know what, Steve? What camera are you using to record this video? What computer did you use to edit it on? What software did you use to edit this video? I'm sure all these things have gotten to you in an unsavory way in one form or another, whether they be made by slaves from China or have someone you'd hate working for the company that made it.
You love trans people, but you also love video games? I mean, again, I'm not a gamer, so maybe I'm not as well informed on the matter as some, but maybe you could just play another fucking game?
Or I could tell you to shove it. I prefer to do that instead.
I looked up Hogwarts Legacy, and apparently it's an action role-playing game where players will be able to create characters and explore a virtual environment. Gosh, it's too bad there aren't any other games like that, apparently.
You know what, Steve? You're actually right. There's plenty of open-world RPGs that already exist. Elden Ring, Dying Light 1 and 2, Fallout, Cyberpunk 2077, Elder Scrolls, Oblivion, and plenty others. But I have a tough time believing you did any research at all when you completely neglect the fact that you don't have to abide by gender norms when you create a character in the game. It's almost like you have as much business speaking on this matter as anti-fur morons do when they bring up literally anything unsavory about furries.
You love trans people, but you also love Harry Potter? I don't know if this helps, but trans people are real people who exist in the real world and who are really suffering as a result of real prejudice and inequality. There's lots of stuff I love too. I love Star Trek. But if Alex Kurtzman started ranting against trans people the way J.K. Rowling has, I think I'd cancel my plans to watch Picard Season 3 and Strange New Worlds Season 2 as long as his name was attached and he stood to benefit from their success.
It's funny you bring that up when I don't see you condemning literally any actual bigoted media like She-Hulk, Batwoman, Velma, or any other phony progressive media made by angry idiots who were handed the reins to an IP they wish to butcher with no respect for the source material. But then again, you're an SJW. I shouldn't expect any critical thinking out of you.
And yeah, skipping Picard Season 3 would probably be no loss, judging by how rotten Season 2 turned out, but missing Strange New Worlds would be a bummer, because I really love that show. But you know what? I'd fucking get over it, because I'm a grown-up, and because there's other shit to watch.
You're a grown-up who doesn't see how hollow his virtue signaling really is.
Look at it this way. Let's say I have a favorite restaurant. I eat there all the time, I love the food, I've been going there for years, but then I find out that the owner of my favorite restaurant is a raging anti-Semite who denies the Holocaust and thinks Hitler was actually a really great guy. I'm gonna stop going to that restaurant. Will I miss going there? Probably, but I'll survive.
Much like all the trans people, buying this game won't hurt. Just because someone says something doesn't equate to taking action. J.K. Rowling said stuff. She didn't donate to anti-trans organizations. And like I said, the character creation options aren't gendered, and you can sleep in either dormitory regardless of which options you pick for your character. So it seems that the game is pretty inclusive, and the only people that this game is going to hurt are people like you, Steve. And besides, J.K. Rowling is rich. The proceeds that come from this game are probably not even going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what she's already gotten.
And here's the thing, if I made the opposite choice and decided to keep going to that restaurant, even though I knew the owner was a Nazi, I wouldn't expect the local Jewish community to look kindly on me. I wouldn't claim to still be their ally. I wouldn't say to them, hey, come on, give me a break. I know the guy who runs the place thinks you all should be eradicated, but what am I supposed to do? Eat somewhere else and expect them to respect me for it because that's obviously bullshit.
This is not comparable at all. Rowling didn't make this game herself. This is no better than me having disrespect for people who like Avengers Infinity War. If you don't respect me for playing a game, the only problem is you. Words do not hurt people.
You can either act like an ally to the trans community or you can buy that video game. And if you're really torn about what to do, it seems to me that you've already made your choice. I'm sure J.K. Rowling and her army of TERFs will thank you for your service, but I wouldn't count on sympathy from anyone else.
Or you could do both, because buying a fucking video game doesn't hurt trans people, especially when the game doesn't have any supposed bigoted sensibilities. That's the end of his video, by the way. Overall, this video was a clueless SJW speaking on a subject matter he doesn't understand for some social brownie points. J.K. Rowling may get some money from this game, but it doesn't share her rhetoric. And that's before you take into account that she's already rich. Get off your high horse and let people buy a game they want to play. Me and several others are sick of pretentious dickheads like you telling us what to consume. We are not going to listen to you. That's all for now. Do not go out of your way to harass anyone I talk about in my videos. You are not welcome in my garage. Thanks for watching, and gotta zoom.